Good evening, everyone. We are going to resume the conditional use hearing, which was held in recess at the end of our prior meeting. An administrative matter to address is I've been presented with a document that's been marked as objector exhibit number 12, which indicates that Scott Fowler and Gwyneth Fowler are no longer being represented by the law office of William J. Cluck. Is there any objection to this being made a part of the record?
Can't hear you.
Uh-oh, you can't hear me. Is that better? Yes. It helps when you talk into the microphone, doesn't it?
Love you.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that, please. She'll understand. So what I was saying is that I have an exhibit marked as objector number 12 that indicates that Scott and Gwyneth Fowler are no longer being represented by the law office of William J. Cluck, and that exhibit is now going to be made a part of the record. And at this point, I don't believe there are any other administrative matters, so I will turn things back over to Mr. Cluck to continue his case.
The first thing I want to clarify, I just want to make sure the record's clear. Scott Fowler and Gwyneth Fowler will remain as parties. They're just not represented, so they're what you consider the unrepresented parties.
That is correct. Do we have an unrepresented party form for them to complete? So we'll have you just enter your appearance pro se. We may do that at the break if we don't, but I'd like to have that of record, and then we'll mark that as an exhibit as well.
Okay, we'll do.
We would just make revisiting the same objection that we made at the first hearing to allow for the time to just review where she lives.
Her party status hasn't changed. She's been a party the whole time. She's just changing. She's just no longer being represented by Mr. Cluck.
All right. Well, we've just made the general representation that we didn't object to anybody represented by Mr. Cluck because he had at least one person who had standing. So this kind of changes the dynamic, I would say, of the previous objection or previous party determination.
And Ms. Fowler, what's your address? Okay. Are you in Windsor Township?
I have part of Windsor Township on my property.
Who do you get a tax bill from?
Pretty much.
The objection is sustained.
So I won't need you to fill out the form. Unfortunately, you don't have party status because even though part of the township does run through your property, because you're treated as a resident of Greenwich Township, you don't have standing in this proceeding.
Even though I'm only half a mile away from the proposed project and I'm a neighbor of Gaspari.
Unfortunately, I don't believe that you have standing. I think that you were essentially being lumped in with the citizens group when you were represented by Mr. Cluck, and so that was you were able to be a party, through the citizens group.
Russell, that's not accurate. The entry of appearance is a citizens group and a list of individuals. The individuals are parties. There was no objection to the standing of the individuals, therefore it has been waived. You can't deny them standing at this point in time just because they're not going to be represented by council anymore.
granted, it's been, this isn't what, hearing 7 or 8.
Not 9, I believe.
So I would just reserve the objection to make a later determination. I think the issue why we did not object is because it was understood that if there were individual objectors who weren't represented by counsel, they could participate and ask questions, and that having counsel represent a number of parties would streamline this process. That's why we did not object. So we just asked, we could reserve this and come back and look at it, unless you're prepared to make that determination now.
Okay. If you want to come forward and and fill out the entry of appearance
Yeah.
form.
While they're doing that, I have one more housekeeping item. In preparing for the hearing with my experts for this evening, applicant's Exhibit 7, and I think we've dealt with this issue, but I just want to revisit it. The wetland delineation report that was provided to us was every other page. I went to the website today because I had a recollection. For some reason, I have some of those even number pages. So I'm assuming that Sean must have sent it to me. So I went to the website where the list of exhibits are, and I don't see an updated exhibit with all of the pages. The exhibit number 7 on the web page is the one that got on day 1 that's missing the even number pages. So I just want, for purposes of everybody who's trying to access the exhibits on the website, that the complete version of the wetland delineation report is up there. I thought it was submitted by Sean to the township, but I couldn't find it, and maybe I'm on the wrong website.
If he wants to be. Yeah. Okay. We'll get it up on the website.
Okay, and just mark it somehow that you know it's like 7 revised or complete or whatever. Okay, thanks, Sean.
I believe I gave Jenna a copy as well, so that's all. Of the revised plan.
So what's in that shared folder is not the record. It's just a courtesy that's being provided. The record is what we have here, but we do want it to be accurate. So we'll make, if we don't have it, Sean, we'll email you and ask for it.
But is the record what's in front of you? Russell, all the notebooks in front of you, that's the record?
Correct, because the stenographer provides us with the marked exhibits. She does not retain them, so we are the ones in custody of the record.
Okay, is number 7 complete in front of you?
We can check.
Okay. Just see if there's a page number 2. That's the quickest way.
Thank you. It wouldn't be hole punched. So it does not appear that the record has a full copy of the wetlands report. So that will need to be provided so that we can make that part of the record, and it will need to be marked separately. We'll mark it, maybe as 7A. But if you could please have that for us at the next proceeding. And then we are gonna go off the record momentarily just so I can have the stenographer mark these entries of appearance. All right, we're going to go back on the record. I want to note for the record that we have marked Board Exhibit 28, which is an entry of appearance form that's been completed by Gwyneth Fowler, and Board Exhibit 29, which is an entry of appearance form that has been executed or completed by Scott D. Fowler. The board will hold in abeyance the objection to their entry of appearance, and any prior ruling on that objection is hereby stricken, and the board will reserve its decision on the standing of Mr. Fowler and Ms. Fowler until a later point in the proceedings. At this point, does council have any other housekeeping matters that must be addressed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, Mr. Cluck, if you want to proceed with your next witness.
Yes, the objectors call Toby, is it pronounced Fawver? Toby, do you have a copy of your CV with you, or do I need to give you a copy?
I don't have a copy.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Fawver, welcome. We've handed you what the court reporter marked as Exhibit 013. Is this a copy of your CV?
Yes.
What is your professional occupation?
I'm a planner.
Are you a certified planner?
Yes.
Hold on. Does he need to speak into the mic, or are you okay with the way it is? Speak up. Move the mic closer to you. What does it mean to be a certified planner?
It's a national certification that is in place by the American Planning Association. That certification requires either a degree in planning and experience, a combination of degree in planning and experience, and then you had to take a test that's given to pass the test.
How long have you been a certified planner?
29 years. I think I had to have a year of experience with my master's degree.
And do I understand that certification comes from the American Institute of Certified Planning?
Yes,
That's AICP.
correct.
What is a fellow?
So within the American Institute of Certified Planners, there is a group of fellows or a college of fellows within that, and it's a way to recognize people that have contributed significantly in the field of planning. And in Pennsylvania, a number of years ago, the Pennsylvania Planning Association nominated me to be considered a fellow, and then I was voted on at a national level to be inducted in as a fellow.
And you were admitted as a fellow by which organization?
The American Institute of Certified Planners.
And your academic background, where did you go to college?
I went to Shippensburg University where I got a bachelor's degree in environmental. And then I went to Kansas State University and got a master's degree in regional community planning, or a bachelor's degree first at Shippensburg and a master's in planning at Kansas State.
And your CV says MRCP. That stands for Masters in Regional and Community Planning?
Correct.
Based on Mr. Fawver's work experience, his professional credentials, and his academic experience, we move to admit him as an expert in planning.
I would just ask for an offer of proof as to the relevance of this testimony.
Well, before we get there, do you have any questions for him about his qualifications?
No, not as a planner, no.
And he's being offered as an expert in what area again, Mr. Cluck?
Planning.
What type of planning?
Are there different types of planning when you're a certified planner?
Generally, planning covers a lot of different topics. When you do a comprehensive plan, it covers transportation, land use, environmental areas, things like that. So my planning background, I've had a lot of work experience in transportation. I've had a lot of work experience in land use planning.
Okay. So land use planning is what you would be proposing.
Well, I think he goes beyond it. The topics for the offer of proof. Well, hold on. First of all, I'm moving to admit him as a planner. He's a certified planner. I don't need to limit his expertise to land use.
Well, when you say planning, not to be cute, but that could be event planning. I'm trying to understand exactly what you're offering him as an expert in.
I would call it community planning.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you worked for 14, your background was at PennDOT?
Some of it, yes.
How long did you work for PennDOT?
14 years.
So principally in traffic planning?
No, I was the majority of my time while I was at PennDOT, I was a deputy secretary, was over multimodal planning, so I covered everything but state roads and bridges in terms of transportation, so aviation, I did a lot of community stuff, I had municipal stuff, was involved in a lot of municipal planning.
Okay, are you primarily represent municipality, the public sector, or the private sector?
You mean as a consultant? I've done a few private sector projects, mostly public sector.
And what municipalities?
I've done work for counties, metropolitan planning organizations, doing regional plans. I've worked with municipalities in Lebanon County. I did a multi-municipal plan in Cumberland County around exit 44 of 81.
You've undertaken the comprehensive planning process for these municipalities?
A lot of it's been special studies. I have been involved in doing components of comprehensive plans, but a lot of my experience is in doing land use planning around transportation projects when I was with PennDOT.
How many zoning ordinances have you adopted or drafted in municipalities?
I've been involved in couple of zoning ordinances. I'm currently chairing a zoning ordinance committee for the township I live in, where we're rewriting the zoning ordinance there.
You don't know how many zoning ordinances?
Not off the top of my head, I don't.
So not full zoning ordinance. Full complete zoning ordinances you haven't drafted.
Well, no. I've worked on components of zoning ordinances.
I don't object to his qualifications as a land use planner and traffic planning, but I would still ask for an as to the relevance.
Okay. Mr. Cluck, do you want to make an offer of proof at this time?
I don't know that I'm required to, but as a courtesy, I will. We're going to ask Mr. Fawver questions about section 806.5, capital letter A of the zoning ordinance, which is applicable to the proposed solar project. We're going to ask him questions about the agricultural zone district and the specific intent set forth in the zoning ordinance. We're going to talk about steep slopes. We're going to talk about prime agricultural soils. We're going to talk about scenic views, and we're going to talk about the rural character of the neighborhood. We're going to review certain aspects of the Northern Tier Comprehensive Plan.
Okay. We have some pro se parties. Ms. Polonic, do you have any questions for the witness? No. Okay. Mr. Hartman. No questions for Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hoffner, are you here this evening? Mr. Hoffner is not here. I saw Mr. Stabile, but I have not seen Mrs. Stabile. She's not here. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Yob. Not here. Mr. Osenbach. Not here. Mr. and Mrs. Balthaser, who are joining us via Zoom. Uh-oh, I can't hear it. Well, I know I'm muted. Say that again, Mr. Balthaser. We cannot hear you, Mr. Balthaser. Turn up the volume. Yep, that's a good idea. Say that again, Mr. Balthaser. Now you can't hear me.
Before I only hear about every third word.
Okay, what?
No, I have no objections to the witness or any questions.
Okay.
And Mrs. Balthaser is not participating tonight.
Okay, thank you. I'll get there in 1 second. Mr. Fowler, do you have any questions? Ms. Fowler, do you have any questions? Okay. Mr. Gallagher.
Mr. Faber, did you participate in the comprehensive planning process for Windsor Township?
No.
Did you offer any advice for your services with respect to the adoption of the Windsor Township zoning ordinance?
No.
Any members of the board have questions for this witness as to his qualifications as an expert? Okay. None of the board members have any questions. Mr. Favre will be accepted as an expert in the area of community planning. Mr. Cluck, please proceed with your testimony.
Toby, in preparing for your testimony this evening, did you review the Windsor Township zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Did you review the northern the joint comprehensive plan for multiple municipalities, including Windsor Township, adopted in 2022?
Yes.
Did you visit the site location?
Yes.
With respect to section 806.5.A, do you have a copy of that in front of you?
Yes.
And it says, in considering any conditional use permitted by the ordinance, the governing body, in this case is the Board of Supervisors, shall, among other things, and then 806.5A says that the governing body shall assure itself that the proposed use is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning ordinance, and in particular, the intended purposes set forth for the district involved. What district is this project proposed to be located in?
Agriculture.
Where in the zoning ordinance would I look to find the intended purposes of the agricultural district?
In section 403.
Okay. You have section 403.1 with you tonight?
Yes.
And it's labeled specific intent?
Yes.
And does it say it's the purpose of this district, meaning the agricultural district where the project is zoned,
Yes.
to foster the continued existence of resources, watersheds, woodlands, historic resources, and agriculture, and protect critical natural areas such as steep slopes, watercourses, water supplies, and ecosystems. Do you see that?
Yes.
Are there specific purposes of the agricultural district identified?
Yes.
Where are they located?
403.1A through 403.1L.
And what are some of those specific purposes that you believe are relevant to the proposed solar project?
403.1A is to conserve open land, including those areas containing unique and sensitive natural features such as woodlands, steep slopes, streams, floodplains, and wetlands by setting them aside from development. 403.1C, to reduce erosion and sedimentation by the retention of existing vegetation and the minimization of development on steep slopes.
Rendering a legal opinion, this is not permissible.
He's reading the ordinance. He hasn't given an opinion.
The supervisors are the ones who adopted the ordinance and determined what the specific intent of the regulations mean. His testimony is not relevant.
Mr. Gallagher, he hasn't rendered an opinion about anything at this point. What opinion do you object to that he's rendered?
What he's finding to be relevant to this consideration, to this application.
I'm going to overrule the objection. You will have an opportunity in cross-examination to explore that if you wish.
Are all the phones turned off now? Thank you. You were interrupted. You first talked about 403.1.A. You then moved to .1.c.
Right.
In response to my question, are there specific purposes listed in section 403? Did you want to continue or do you want to go back to A?
No, I can continue.
Go ahead.
403.1.f, to implement adopted land use transportation community policies as identified in the comp plan. 403.1G, to protect areas of the municipality with productive agricultural soils for continued or future agricultural use by conserving blocks of land large enough to allow for efficient farm operations. 403.1H, to create neighborhoods with direct visual access to open lands with amenities in the form of neighborhood open space and with a strong neighborhood identity. 403.1I, to provide for conservation and maintenance of open land within the municipality to achieve the above-mentioned goals and for active or passive recreational use. 403.1J, to provide multiple options for landowners in order to minimize impacts on environmental resources, sensitive lands such as wetlands, floodplain, and steep slopes, and disturbance of natural or cultural features such as mature woodlands, hedgerows, and tree lines, critical wildlife habitats, historic buildings, and fieldstone walls. 403.1K, to provide standards reflecting the varying circumstances and interests of individual landowners and the individual characteristics of their properties, and 403.1L, to conserve scenic views and elements of the municipality's rural character and to minimize perceived density by minimizing views of new development from existing roads.
Thank you. Let's go back up to .1.a. To conserve open land is one of the specific purposes, and it also says including areas that contain steep slopes. Does the zoning ordinance, let me rephrase that, are steep slopes a defined term in the zoning ordinance?
No.
Does the zoning ordinance address steep slopes?
Yes.
Where and how are steep slopes addressed, if you recall, in the zoning ordinance?
Got a copy of it here somewhere. There's a steep slopes overlay. Here it is, section 408, which is steep slope overlay, begins on page 103.
Okay. Is one of the specific purposes of the Ag District to limit or minimize development on steep slopes?
Yes.
Just hold that off to the side for now. 403.1.c, you said that's one of the specific purposes of one of the specific intents for the agricultural district. Why is it important to minimize development on steep slopes?
Per the ordinance, to reduce erosion and sedimentation and minimize development.
Does the applicant's site plan or their narrative include steep slopes?
Yes.
What steep slopes do you recall are represented in the application?
So the application identifies a series of steep slopes with acreages in the cultural resources study.
Okay, hold on, I'm not ready to go to that yet.
Okay.
The site plan itself, if we can pull up document C-100. Russell, what can we use to show him C-100? You have a copy?
Well, I'm not sure if I have that one. I have, let's see.
Lower right-hand side.
Yeah, I got the DA ones.
Okay. C-100. C-100.
Let the record reflect that the witness now has the page C-100 in front of him.
Showing you applicant's the board's exhibit, C-100. This is the engineering drawings. What is C-100? What's this title?
Overall site plan.
Is there a symbol for steep slopes on the site plan?
Yeah.
And what steep slopes are depicted on the site plan?
Existing slopes of 25% or greater.
Is that the only steep slopes that are identified on the plan? Just those greater than 25%?
That's all I can see.
Is there a symbol for any other steep slopes less than 25%?
No. Unless I'm missing it. That's it. Yeah.
Not sure I can read it again, but if you want. With respect to section 408, the steep slope overlay, does it address steep slopes greater than 15% but less than 25%?
It does.
And can you give us an example of what that section of the zoning ordinance says with respect to slopes between 15 and 25%?
Sure. In section 408.3, it has a whole section just dealing with lots containing slopes of 15% or greater.
But it's your understanding, based on your review of the site plan that we just showed you, the site plan only includes slopes greater than 25%. It doesn't include slopes between 15 and 25%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Directing your attention to exhibit number 8. It's the Phase 1A Cultural Resource Study. Did you get an opportunity to review that exhibit, applicant's exhibit 8, for your testimony tonight?
I did.
Directing your attention to exhibit 8 on page, I believe it's 9. Yes. Page 9 on Exhibit 8. Do you have a copy of that in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on for a second. John, you with me?
Page 9.
Yeah, okay. You were rustling around. Showing you what it says, Table 1. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it's titled Detailed List of Soils in Project Area, and in parentheses, USDA/NRCS 2021. Do you see that?
Yes.
And what does that table depict?
It's different soil types or soil complexes at different slope levels. So it starts at it has 0 to 3%, and then 3 to 8%, 8 to 15%, 15 to 25%, and then 25 to 60%. And then it has acreages and percentages of those sections or pieces of acreages that are included in the site.
And based on Table 1 in Exhibit 8, the Cultural Resources exhibit, how many acres of this project are on slopes between 8 and 15%?
318.9.
318.9 acres of the proposed solar project are on properties that have slopes between 15 and 25%. Is that correct?
Well, 15 to 25 is 15.1.
Excuse me, I misspoke.
8 to 15 is 318.
Okay. And 15 to 25, what's the number?
15.1.
Okay. My apologies, I misspoke. Now,
Actually, it's 15.1 plus 8.9. There's two pieces that are there.
okay. And directing your attention, let's move up to page 42 of the same exhibit. Do you
Yep.
have a copy of that? And does it say that at least 10% of the project area is steeply sloped?
Yes.
Does it limit steep slopes to only those greater than 25% in that discussion?
No.
And that section is entitled Summary of Recommendations for Initial Investigations?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm also going to direct your attention to the wetland study. The wetland study is Exhibit 7. And on page 2 of the wetland study, you do not have a copy? You don't have a copy?
No.
I have provided the witness with a photocopy of page 2 of exhibit number 7, which is the wetland delineation report for the Mountain Trail Solar Project, showing you page 2 of that exhibit. Is there a table there?
Yes.
What is the name of that table?
USDA NRCS mapped soils.
And is it the same soil names that appear in the cultural resources?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay, so it lists the map unit symbol,
Yes.
the map unit name, and that's the name of the soil,
Yes.
and it identifies the percent slopes.
It identifies the acres on site.
Right, but under unit name, it also
Oh, yeah, the
says-
percent slopes are there. Yes.
Right, and it has a hydric rating, and I'm assuming that's because it's a wetland report.
Yes.
And then it says acres on site.
Yep.
Directing your attention to the Berks complex for B little k capital letter B. It says here 3 to 8% slopes. The number 3, the word 2, TO, the number 8% slopes. What are the number of acres shown on table 1 on exhibit 7?
71.7.
And if you refer back to the table on exhibit 8, what are the number of acres for that particular soil?
69.4.
Okay, so exhibit 7 says 71.7, exhibit 8 says 69.4 acres. With respect to the Berks complex, for slopes between 8 and 15%, what are the number of acres on exhibit, from exhibit 7, the wetland report?
331.7.
And the number of acres for that soil type in the cultural resources report on page 9, table 1.
318.9.
So wetland says 331.7 acres. Cultural resources says 318.9. What is the source of the information in table 1 on exhibit 7?
It says USDA NRCS.
And that's the exact same source, but we don't know the year.
On the other table from the Phase 1 Cultural Resources Study, it has a 2021 behind it. I don't see the year on the Exhibit 7 one.
While we're discussing steep slopes and soils, is one of the specific purposes of the agricultural zoning district to address productive agricultural soils?
It is.
Which subsection of the ordinance is that? So you're looking for 403.1G?
Yeah. I gotta get the right piece here. There it is. So it is 403.1G to protect areas of the municipality with productive agricultural soils for continued or future agricultural use by conserving blocks of land large enough to allow for efficient farm operations.
Thank you.
14 and 15? And 15. For convenience, I just had two exhibits marked, 14 and 15. 14 is a resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Windsor Township, and 15 are excerpts of the comprehensive plan. And I'm hesitating because my understanding is the specific title of this is I think the Northern Tier plan, but I don't see the actual title.
I think it's titled in the resolution, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Northern Berks County.
We'll call it it's Windsor Township is part of this comprehensive plan. That's the point.
Yeah.
Okay. And all I want to do is direct your attention to Exhibit 15. There's certain pages, and the pages are numbered on the bottom. I want you to turn, for this series of questions, to it says 51 on the bottom of the page. It's 1,
Yep.
2,
I've got it.
3, 4. I think it's the 6th page of Exhibit 15. Everybody's with me?
I don't see a page 50 down.
Bottom right-hand corner. That's it.
Page 6.
No, the next page should be. Bottom says 51? Okay, all right. For information, this is page 51 from the entire document. We did not copy and make an exhibit of the entire document. For this purposes, what do you see? This is from Chapter 6, Natural Features and Agricultural Conservation. Is there a section entitled Prime Agricultural Soils?
There is.
Does it have different classes of soils?
Yes.
If you turn to page 52, the next page, 52 is on the lower left-hand side of the document. At the very top, do you see where it says using this classification?
Yes.
What does it say?
Using this classification, the municipality's planning code defines prime agricultural land as that of which is used for agricultural purposes containing soils rated classes 1 through 3.
And does it have a provision for Windsor Township?
Yes.
What does it say?
Windsor Township, 6,538 acres are considered prime agricultural land. Class 3 soils are the majority within the township.
If you turn to the very last page of Exhibit 15, this appears to be page 67 from the comprehensive plan. Can you identify what this depicts?
It's a map showing the soil classes. I'm looking for a title on the map, but it looks like it's a map showing soil classes.
Yeah, top right side, it says soils.
Yeah.
Okay. And it shows Windsor Township, and it shows by color code Class 3 soils?
Yes.
Okay. Do any Commonwealth agencies have guidance about siting solar projects on prime agricultural lands?
Yes.
Directing your attention to Exhibit 16. Do you recognize this document?
It's this one, 16.
Yes. What agency is that from?
Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
And its title?
Farmland considerations for siting grid-scale solar panels.
Is it your understanding the proposed solar project is what's known as a grid-scale solar panel?
Yes.
Directing your attention to the second page of this, and by the way, to clarify, this is a guidance document. It doesn't have the force of law, correct?
That's correct.
It's neither a regulation or a statute, right?
Correct.
And it's not binding on the supervisors, correct?
Correct.
But it's the policy position of the Department of Agriculture with respect to siting solar projects on prime agricultural land, correct?
That's correct.
Turning to the second page. Under sustainable siting considerations, do you see where it says location?
Yes.
What does it say?
Deploy solar on non-agricultural and non-forested land whenever possible. And then it's got in parentheses roofs, parking lots, brownfields, etc. Class 1 through 4 soil should be avoided. And then the second bullet says ensure that farming can continue, including those lands leased for agricultural production.
Okay, so it says class 1 through 4.
Correct.
FOUR for the number 4.
Correct.
Soils. And we've already established that Windsor Township, that the soils are class 3.
Correct.
Directing your attention to number 17. What guidance document is this from?
It's a farmland considerations for siting grid-scale solar panels by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture.
Okay, we have what's known as, let's blame the copy center for the mistake. If everybody looks at Exhibit 17, I believe your first page says farmland considerations for siting grid-scale solar panels. That's actually the cover page for Exhibit 16. My apologies to the world for people who will get slapped. Exhibit 17, do you see the title page?
Yes.
And what agency is this document from?
Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources.
And its title?
Conservation considerations for siting, planning, and maintaining grid-scale solar systems in Pennsylvania.
Okay, hold on for a second. Do you need to do anything to fix this? Or will it do later?
I think he did.
I've already changed the pages on the official exhibits.
Bless you. You had a chance to review Exhibit 17?
Yes.
What are some of the considerations in citing that you think are important?
So on the second page, there's a second bullet down that says balance potential opportunities of grid-scale solar energy projects with priorities and benefits of agricultural preservation and sustainable forest management.
On the next page, titled Citing Best Practices, if you look at the very bottom one, do you see that?
Yep.
What does that say?
Avoid siting near recreational, historic, and environmental areas where grid-scale solar could have an impact on scenic byways and view sheds, historic sites, recreational amenities, and other high-value natural resources.
Okay, we mentioned the comprehensive plan. Can you pull out, let's start with Exhibit 14. Can you identify Exhibit 14?
I don't have the numbers on them, but it's the
It's the resolution.
resolution, right? So, yeah, it's the resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Windsor Township adopting the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Northern Berks County.
I guess we'll call it the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Northern Berks County for identification purposes. When was this enacted by the supervisors, this resolution?
11th of May, 2022.
Turning to Exhibit 15. That's the excerpts of the comprehensive plan that we looked at the aspects on soils. I want to now go through the other pages with you.
Okay.
The page 1 of Exhibit 15 is the introduction from Chapter 1 of the comprehensive plan, correct?
Object again on relevance grounds. This comprehensive plan is relevant to the enacted legislation that this application is filed under.
Mr. Cluck?
We're not indicating that the comprehensive plan is binding as a matter of law, but the comprehensive plan is a strategy to guide local officials on making decisions regarding activities and projects under the zoning ordinance. That's the purpose.
It's not. It's a guiding tool in adopting zoning ordinances. The zoning ordinance has been adopted. The comprehensive plan has absolutely nothing to do with the application.
I disagree, Mr. Gallagher. The objection is overruled.
I guess the record reflects that it's just a continuing objection to his testimony from the get-go. So I don't want to have to object every 5 minutes. It's all irrelevant.
The record is noted as to your objection to Mr. Faber's testimony.
Just that it would be a continuing objection.
And to be clear, his continuing objection has been overruled.
That is correct.
Thank you. Toby, page 1, under the heading, "This comprehensive plan is a living document." Do you see that?
Yes.
And the last paragraph, what does that state in the first sentence?
I'm looking for that language.
Bottom of the page. Where it says "this plan."
Yeah. This plan presents a strategy to guide municipal officials and other agencies in making decisions that will assure that the Northern Berks region will continue to be an attractive place in which to live, work, and visit.
And it clarifies that the comprehensive plan is not an ordinance, it's not a regulation, but it's a basis for proposing regulations and undertaking specific functional plans. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that your understanding of the purpose of a comprehensive plan?
That, yes.
And then page 2 of the exhibit, which is also page 2, it discusses how the plan was developed. And then page 3, under chapter 1, the introduction, it shows the various multi-municipalities within Berks County, and in red, those are the municipalities that are part of this plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chapter 2 of this exhibit, it's pages number 5 on the bottom. It says the visions and goals of this plan.
Yep.
If you turn to the next page, the number 6 is on the lower left-hand side of the page. It's color-coded green, blue, and orange. You see that, Toby?
Yes.
the section green, natural features and agricultural conservation, do you find that any of those items bullet pointed are relevant?
Yes.
Which ones?
The first one, which was protect important natural features with special emphasis upon the Kittatinny Ridge, the Schuylkill River, Hassler, Lesher, and Rattling Runs, and I won't read the rest of it, but that one. The second one, continue to maintain and protect agricultural activities and structures within the region. The third one, protect the steep slopes greater than 15% within the region. The next to last one, identify scenic areas of the region and encourage the preservation of these areas for enjoyment by residents and visitors by limiting the encroachment of development. And the last one, protect natural resources and regional open space from utilities and development.
So the comprehensive plan identifies protection of steep slopes. You see that?
Yep,
How do they define steep slopes in the comprehensive plan?
greater than 15%.
Moving on, we can skip pages 51 and 52 of that exhibit that we did that's soils. We're now going to do page 54, which is still part of exhibit 15.
Okay.
Page 54, there's the area in the middle is entitled Natural Heritage Areas. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is there a definition in that section for what is a natural heritage area? Second paragraph.
Yes. According to PNHP, a natural heritage area is an area containing one or more plant or animal species of concern at state or federal levels, exemplary natural communities, or exceptional native biological diversity.
Does it say what is a core habitat?
It does.
And what is a core habitat according to the comprehensive plan?
Core habitats are defined as areas representing critical habitat that cannot absorb significant levels of activity without substantial negative impacts to elements of concern.
And does it say there are 9 core habitats in the Northern Berks planning region?
Looking for that in this section.
Next
Yes,
paragraph.
the next paragraph. There are 9 core habitats, yes.
And is the Kittatinny Ridge Hawk Mountain in Windsor Township one of those core habitats?
It is.
If you turn the page, the next page is number 60 of the comprehensive plan. It's still part of Exhibit 15. Lower left-hand side is where the number 60 is located. In the middle, it's titled Kittatinny Ridge. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is the Kittatinny Ridge designated as one of the largest, and it's a capitalized term, important bird area by the Audubon Society?
It is.
Does it identify in the comprehensive plan in this section the various species that migrate using this important ridge and valley?
Yes.
What are some of those species?
It references hawks, eagles, and falcons.
Does it also talk about the economics of tourism?
Yeah, it says hiking, hunting, and fishing tourism generate $223 million in Berks County alone.
beginning of your testimony, I asked you about the specific purposes of the agricultural district, and you identified a number of subsections of section 403.1A. We have reviewed 403.1A. We've also just finished reviewing 403.1G. You mentioned F. Why did you mention F?
To implement the adopted land use, transportation, and community policies as identified in the municipality's comprehensive plan. That's the linkage to the comp plan.
Okay. You also identified H.
Yep. That's the one that to create neighborhoods with direct visual access to open land with amenities in the form of neighborhood open space.
You said you walked this site?
Yes.
Did you observe open space?
Yes.
Did you speak with any of the neighbors?
Yes.
And did you get a sense for the neighborhood identity?
Yeah, the
Relevance. Hearsay.
Can you explain the hearsay that you're objecting to?
He's talking about a third-party communication.
I have not heard him repeat what a third party has said to him. I'm going to overrule the objection, but Mr. Clark, just be careful that you don't overstep and violate the hearsay rule of evidence.
Thank you, sir. What is your basis for believing there is a strong neighborhood identity?
So from driving around the site and observing the site from different directions, the neighborhood that's there it's rural residential, and their view is all agricultural land, open space and agricultural land.
I think you cited I,
Yes.
and what is I?
Provide for conservation and maintenance of open land within the municipality to achieve the above-mentioned goals, and for active or passive recreational use by residents.
Okay, do you want to add in your observations with respect to that intent?
Sure. So the land that is proposed for the development is currently open space, agricultural land, and that's for the residents of that area, that's passive recreational use, being able to observe that land, look at wildlife, and have a view of open space.
I think the next one you said J,
Yes.
and what is that?
Provide multiple options for landowners in order to minimize impacts on environmental resources such as wetlands, floodplain, and steep slopes, and disturbance of natural or cultural features such as mature woodlands, hedgerows, tree lines, critical wildlife habitats, historic buildings, and fieldstone walls. And that one I reference because, number one, it references specifically steep slopes and minimizing impacts to steep slopes, and also minimizing impacts to critical wildlife habitats.
Okay, I think the next one is K.
Yep. Providing standards reflecting the varying circumstances and interests of individual landowners and individual characteristics of their properties. And this is one where the property owners, the people that own the homes surrounding this property, enjoy the same right that the property owner himself enjoys. They purchased or live in those homes with an agricultural district behind them, or agricultural use behind them in an agricultural district. And changing the characteristics or significantly impacting the circumstances of those individual landowners as a result of this development.
And then the last one is the letter L.
to conserve scenic views and elements of the municipality's rural character and to minimize perceived density by minimizing views of new development from existing roads. And it's included in the language, conserving scenic views and elements of the municipality's rural character.
Right, and we've already reviewed the comprehensive plan with respect to Kittatinny Ridge. And you said you also went to the site. Did you observe the scenic views?
Yes.
How would you describe them?
It's picturesque is the way I would describe it. From any of the adjacent properties, when you look across the property or look across the agricultural land behind them, it's rolling agricultural property with trees there.
Would 449 acres of solar panels detract from the scenic views in the region?
Well, it drastically changes the scenic views. There eliminates the scenic view for the immediate adjacent properties, and it would drastically change the scenic view within the region because it'll stand out.
And does that also change the character of the area?
It will change the character of the area. Yes.
Looking at zoning provision 806.5 capital letter B, do you have that near you?
I do.
I'm going to ask you, what does it say?
806.5B, determine that the proposed use will not substantially injure or detract from the use of the neighboring property or from the character of the area, and that use of the property adjacent to the area is adequately safeguarded.
In your professional opinion as a community planner, do you believe that the proposed solar project is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning ordinance for the agricultural district?
No.
Do you hold the opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes.
In your professional opinion, will the proposed use of 449 acres of solar panels substantially detract from the use of neighboring properties, from the character of the area, and the character of the area, period?
Absolutely.
And do you hold that opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes.
Is there anything else that I may have missed that you think is important enough that you want to point out to the Board of Supervisors before we close your direct testimony?
Just want to look at one item. So I think in Article 1, Section 103, on page 3 of the ordinance, it outlines a purpose and statement of community development objectives. As part of that, it says the ordinance was prepared with careful consideration being given to, among other things, the character of various areas within the municipality and their suitability for particular uses, and with the view toward conserving the value of property and encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the municipality. And I think that purpose statement, combined with the intents of the agricultural district and the standards in 806.5 A and B, That's the basis of where I'm drawing my conclusions.
Okay. You were citing to section 103 of the zoning ordinance, correct?
Correct.
And that's the purpose section, statement of community development objectives, of objectives?
Yes.
And it says the basis for this ordinance is the comprehensive plan, which enumerates in detail the locally desired development goals and objectives which this ordinance seeks to accomplish.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's all we have for direct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cluck. At this point, we will take a 10-minute recess, and we will then proceed to cross-examination. All right, we're going to go back on the record now. Mr. Fowler, you remain under oath. Mr. Gallagher, cross-examination.
Thank you. How you doing, Mr. Fowler?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I don't have it. Thank you. I don't have a ton of questions for you. So just to go back, you're familiar with the land development process, correct?
I am.
Have you drafted any land development ordinances?
No.
Okay. But you're aware there's a land development process that follows the conditional use process?
Yes.
In a zoning ordinance, is it possible to consolidate lots through a zoning ordinance?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Only objectives beyond the scope of the record.
He's testified to the ordinance. I'm asking him questions for...
Mr. Gallagher, I also don't understand the question, so maybe if you want to rephrase it.
Okay.
And if you could speak into the microphone so the audience can hear you.
So you rendered your opinions on this application. They were not, you didn't render any specific opinion with respect to the standards in section 615. Do you have the zoning ordinance?
I don't have the whole ordinance, but I do have 615.
Okay. And with respect to, and we agree that commercial solar energy systems are an authorized use in the agricultural district.
Yes.
And these are objective standards provided for in section 615.
Yes.
Okay. And you rendered no opinion with respect to the provisions in section 615.
That's correct.
Okay. A comprehensive plan, that is not an ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And with respect to Exhibit 15, this is not the whole comprehensive plan. Did you review the whole comprehensive plan?
I did not read every word in the comprehensive plan, no.
Okay. Did you talk to anybody who, you did not participate in this comprehensive plan?
No, I did not.
And when was this adopted?
The board here adopted it on the 11th day of May, 2022.
Okay. So you gave testimony earlier about the zoning ordinance taking into account the comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan was adopted after the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Okay. With respect to section 403.1, the objectives, 403.1A through L,
Okay.
how would you term these objectives or these standards? Objective conditional use standards or subjective?
They're not conditional use standards, it's the intent of the district.
Okay. And they're subjective in nature.
Some are, I would say, yeah. I'd have to read them all again to think about them, whether I'd use that term, but yes, I'd say that's generally right.
Okay, and who's responsible with respect to erosion and sedimentation? Are there other agencies that regulate those erosion and sedimentation for projects?
Yes.
Okay, so that would happen at a later date under land development?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on.
When you review the specific plan, yes.
Okay. And if a project, not only this project, but if any project did not comply with the objective standards, then it would have to require a variance, is that correct?
I think that calls for a legal conclusion.
Is that an objection, Mr. Cluck?
Yeah, that's it.
Do you have a response, Mr. Gallagher?
He gave extensive testimony with respect to the applicability of steep slopes.
You haven't laid a foundation for his ability to answer that question. Do you want an opportunity to do that?
Yes.
Proceed.
So you offered a substantial amount of testimony with respect to steep slopes for this project. If this project did not comply with the steep slopes standards in the zoning ordinance, would it require a variance?
That's one way of dealing with it, yes.
What would be the other way?
You could deny it.
Okay. Have you reviewed, do you have section 4083F3 with you?
I do have that one, yes.
And it just provides that the zoning officer will not issue a zoning permit until a plan is submitted indicating to the satisfaction of the township engineer that all potential problems of steep slopes have been resolved. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that determination is left with the township engineer. It states what it states.
What are you looking at?
Section 4083F3. I was just reading it and asking if he agreed with what it stated.
Okay.
Well, but I thought when you read it, I heard zoning officer, and then your question is township engineer.
Okay. Well, I mean, the 4083F3 states what it states.
Can you read it into the record, please?
The zoning officer will not issue a zoning permit until a plan is submitted indicating to the satisfaction of the township engineer that all potential problems of steep slopes have been resolved.
The objection's overruled.
Do you have any specific experience in the solar industry?
I do not.
Okay. And you had commented about the scenic values and the open space and the number of neighbors you talked to. Wouldn't any development change the open space?
Potentially, yes, if there was significant development covering the whole site.
Okay. Like a residential development of homes?
If it covered the whole site, yes.
Okay. I believe there's mobile home parks. Trailer home parks are a permitted use.
Okay,
Would that change the scenic value?
potentially.
What about cell phone towers?
Potentially, if it's, a cell phone tower wouldn't cover the whole site.
Okay. I think I just have a couple more.
Sure.
In agriculture itself, wouldn't that cause erosion in of itself? On steep slopes?
On steep slopes, they're practicing conservation practices to avoid causing erosion, usually.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. But you don't have any experience in the agricultural industry.
Other than growing up on a farm, no. That's it.
Okay.
I'm not being smart, that's just it.
Yeah, no, understood.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Ms. Polonic, do you have any questions? Mr. Hartman? That's going to go to my head. Mr. Fowler? No questions. Ms. Fowler? No questions. Mr. Balthaser? Let's go turn this back on. Mr. Balthaser, do you have any questions? No?
No, no questions.
All right, thank you. Any members of the board have questions? Mr. Mazeka? No questions from the board. Is there any redirect?
No.
Okay, the witness is excused. Mr. Cluck, how long would your direct examination of your next witness be, approximately?
At least an hour. Toby was what, 90 minutes almost?
Yes.
Yeah, Bruce is probably at least an hour.
Okay. Do you have any other witnesses that you would want to call this evening?
That's all I'm looking for. Is anybody, watch this, who's off the record? Anybody here who's represented by me that has said they want to testify, I have the list. If you're here tonight and you'd like to testify tonight, raise your hand. Okay? Anybody who is a client of mine who says they want to testify, are you willing and able to testify Monday the 26th? Is there anybody here who's my client who's present? Answer that question. Nobody wants to go on Monday.
And they don't want to go on Monday either. I don't.
No, and we'll talk that if they don't, that my intention is to finish on Monday. So if they don't have anything to add because they just be cumulative, then they're not going to testify.
Okay. My inclination is to it's a little early, but is to and you can stay off the record, is to conclude for the evening with the understanding that because I want to keep your cross with the direct.
Yeah, understood.
So you can go back on
So if the intent is so he'll close on Monday, then I believe that the other objectors will go forward on.
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to go back on the record and talk about the procedure going forward.
Okay.
Just so everyone understands that. So we just had a discussion off the record about Mr. Cluck's additional witnesses. Mr. Cluck has indicated that he intends to complete his case at our next hearing, which will be February 26th, which is this coming Monday, starting at 6 o'clock in this room, the large group instruction room at the Hamburg Area High School. I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the procedure going forward, just so that everyone is aware of what's going to happen next. So what's going to happen on Monday is we'll complete the objector's case. Then after that, probably not Monday, but at the next hearing date that we select, all the parties who have entered their appearance will have an opportunity to present testimony and evidence. That's not the time to make an argument or a closing statement, but a time to call witnesses and present evidence. Once we conclude with those presentations, then the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. Once the applicant has completed their rebuttal, we will then have an opportunity for public comment, and there will then be and after public comment, there will then be an opportunity for parties to make a closing statement or argument to the board, and at that point. And then it would be the intention that any party can submit proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, which would include if you have proposed conditions that you believe should be considered by the board. The board will meet in executive session to consider what they intend to do, and then the board may have questions for witnesses, may have questions for the parties predominantly, and if that's the case, then they will ask those questions, and then at that point the record will be closed. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure?
No, just so I think I understand, Mr. Cluck will finish his case on, we have the 26th and the 28th.
We have the 26th, the 28th, unfortunately there's a conflict, so we're going to need to pick another date. So we can do that after we close this evening.
Okay. Would another status call be that might be the easiest way, just to figure out a schedule that works for everybody?
We can do that. So we'll schedule a status call probably for sometime next week.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to do the 26th, and we're going to have to find. We're going to have to know a date by then.
Correct. That's why I'd like to pick a date tonight for after the 26th.
Okay.
Mr. Cluck. Yes.
At the end of the 26th, we'll say specific.
Yes.
You asked me about the 29th. Right now, I have a conflict for the 29th, but there is a percentage chance it won't happen. I'll know Monday. So when we come in Monday the 26th, if I know by the time we start on the 26th that I'm not going to have something on the 29th, is that a date you want to try to schedule?
I'm looking at Mr. Gallagher because I want to know what his schedule
Yeah,
permits.
I mean, what happened to the 28th? I mean.
Yeah, I have a conflict.
I mean, we have a lot of people traveling. I guess could we just come back and figure that out tomorrow or on the 26th so I can talk to everybody? That would work.
Yeah.
And so if we did the 29th, does that work for your people or you thought they were coming to 28th?
Well, I haven't talked to them.
I have reasons for the 29th not to happen, but that's going to be up to that board. And I don't think anything else. All right, we'll figure it out Monday.
Okay.
Okay. And then we'll just do a status call. I mean, we don't have to have this conversation
Okay.
right here.
All right.
I mean, I think we're going to need more dates.
We're going to need quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you explain the timeline for the written stuff to the supervisors? Like, when does that happen in regards to the last, after the public comment? Like, do we get a set amount of time? Do we get a chance to get the transcripts? How does that work?
We'll figure it out when the time comes.
So I can't give you a date certain. I can tell you that you will have about 10 days from that point in time.
All right, thanks.
All right. We're going to go back on the record. Everyone hold their peace, okay? All right, we're going to go back on the record. At this point, if the board wants to entertain a motion to recess or adjourn in progress to resume on February 26th at 6:00 p.m. in the in the large group instruction room of the Hamburg Area High School.
Someone make that motion. Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it.
Okay. The hearing is now in recess until February 26th at 6:00 p.m.